I'd say I love fandom drama, but I'm this bothered me so much I had to make a video on it. Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, literally don't worry about it because I never post. So a few weeks ago, this Rhaenyra Targaryen fan art was posted to Twitter and it upset a lot of people. So this fan art depicts Rhaenyra very femininely, which a certain crowd of people did not like that much. Those against this depiction of Rhaenyra argued that it wasn't very true to her character, while those more in favor of it argued that the other party don't understand Rhaenyra's character. So from what I've gathered, this divide is kind of based on two things. Number one, and I think it's the most important, is whether or not these fans have read Fire and Blood. The second one being if they ship Rhaenicent or not. For those who don't know, Rhaenicent is the ship between Rhaenyra Targaryen and Alicent Hightower. In this video, I'm going to examine both sides of the argument and then give my take on all of it. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to be calling the people who don't like this fan art Rhaenicents and people who are more in favor of this fan art anti-Rhaenicents. I say this because that is the language that I was seeing when this was going on. I don't think that people who are for or against this fan art are necessarily falling into those categories, but it's just gonna make my life easier, okay? As I said at the top of this video, this depiction of Rhaenyra is very feminine. As an example, this is what show Rhaenyra looks like compared to the fan art of Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra, beyond the initial episodes with Millie Alcock in the role, is usually depicted wearing very dark, black, red gowns with minimal makeup or jewelry. Her dresses usually have a very strong silhouette emphasizing her shoulders. These elements come together to present her in a more masculine way compared to her counterparts such as Alicent and Lena. Rhaenicents also point to a line that Rhaenyra says in season 2 episode 6 in reference to Daemon, where she says, and I'm gonna read this off of my screen, "He was everything I wanted to be, carefree and dangerous, a man." This could allude to Rhaenyra not feeling comfortable either in her gender identity or the expression that is expected for someone assigned female at birth, and especially in her station. Rhaenicent's tendency to depict Rhaenyra in a more masculine way is heavily influenced by her actor, Emma Darcy. Emma Darcy is non-binary, uses they/them pronouns, and presents their gender in a more traditionally masculine way. Their appearance and identity have a large impact on how Rhaenyra is depicted in fan works, especially fan art. As an example, Emma Darcy has short hair, so artists typically give Rhaenyra short hair. Overall, Rhaenicents feel that this depiction of Rhaenyra isn't very accurate to her character, especially considering the show's version of the character. Despite this fan art depicting Rhaenyra in a modern AU, fans feel that this doesn't align with the more masculine elements of Rhaenyra's identity and just isn't representative of her. So, something I find a little silly about the anti-Rhaenicent crowd is that the anti-Rhaenicents aren't so much in favor of this fan art, but more so are against the Rhaenicent crowd. Their argument mainly centers around Rhaenyra's descriptions in the books and other official material, and a different interpretation of Rhaenyra's line in season 2 episode 6. So George R.R. Martin describes Rhaenyra as, and I'm reading this off my thing again, a stout woman with a thick waist and a very large bosom. As for her clothing, he describes her wearing, and I'm reading again, purple and maroon velvets and golden Moorish lace in intricate patterns. Her bodice often glittered with pearls and diamonds, and there were always rings on her fingers. As an example, this is how Rhaenyra is drawn in Fire and Blood, as well as the semi-official wiki for A Song of Ice and Fire. As for Rhaenyra's line in season 2 episode 6, anti-rhaenicents argue that this line has nothing to do with her gender identity, but has to do with the societal expectations that have been placed on Rhaenyra as a woman in this like medieval-esque society. Even though Westeros is a fictional place, it is heavily inspired by medieval society and the misogynistic frameworks that are built into it. Rhaenyra wishes that she could do every like horrible thing that Daemon has done and get away with it like him. She believes that if she were a man, she wouldn't have to face such dire consequences. Anti-rhaenicents believe by ignoring the deeper meaning of these lines, rhaenicents don't understand Rhaenyra's character and where she's coming from. Anti-rhaenicents also believe that the rhaenicent ship also factors in to how rhaenicents depict Rhaenyra. According to anti-rhaenicents, rhaenicents portray Rhaenyra in this very hyper-masculine way, and depict Alicent in this very hyper-feminine way to play into traditional butch femme masc femme dynamics in the lesbian community. In this regard, they don't believe that it's necessarily wrong to do so as long as the rhaenicent crowd admits that these are just headcanons and have nothing to do with the real depictions of Alicent and Rhaenyra. Many believe that the rhaenicent ship has skewed fans' perceptions of both Alicent and Rhaenyra and makes them into characters that are completely unrecognizable. So, as a disclaimer, I do in fact ship rhaenicent and I have not read Fire and Blood. I don't think the shipping rhaenicent matters as much as not reading Fire and Blood, but that's your opinion. So I guess if stuff like that matters to you, take my opinion with a grain of salt. Okay? Okay. So at the time of writing, let's keep in mind that I wrote this all like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Fair warning, I don't particularly like this piece of fan art, not because I think it's bad or morally or ethically wrong or whatever, but I just don't like it, and I don't think that it's a very accurate representation of Rhaenyra, book canon or otherwise. I don't particularly find Rhaenyra to be overly masculine or overly feminine. I don't perceive Rhaenyra falling strictly into the binary that rhaenicents and anti-rhaenicents have set up for her character. I do, however, think that she is the most masculine woman in House of the Dragon, but that's not a very high bar to cross when compared to like Alicent, Helena, Lena, Jane, but I don't think that Rhaenyra's portrayal is particularly groundbreaking for a depiction of a quote-unquote masculine woman. I definitely do believe that perceptions of Rhaenyra's gender identity have been heavily influenced by Emma Darcy. That being said, I don't find anything particularly wrong with that, and I don't find it groundbreaking either. For God knows how long, people have been drawing fan art based on the actors that play their characters. For example, I am a big fan of Sabe from Star Wars. Sabe is played by Keira Knightley. In Pride and Prejudice, Keira Knightley has bangs. So what do? I draw Sabe with bangs. So I don't think it's anything new or revolutionary for people to draw Rhaenyra much like Emma Darcy presents their gender. Another argument I've been seeing a lot from the anti-rhaenicent crowd, but I honestly did not feel like was worth putting into the anti-rhaenicent section, was that people only like mask Rhaenyra because they A, see themselves as Alicent, and B, think Emma Darcy is attractive, and to that I say, yeah. I don't think that's the sole motivation, you know, but like, grass is green, the sky is blue, tale as old as time, you know? As with everything I have discussed thus far, this is not a new concept. And it's not some moral or ethical failing, as I feel so many within this argument have tried to like proclaim, because it's not that serious. The concept of shipping quote unquote yourself with a character you find attractive is not new. We can see this in very early fandom with the creation of the character Mary Sue as used in like Star Trek fanfiction. That character is meant to be a self-insert so she can be fawned over by all the guys that the author found attractive. It's not new. That's why we have OCs, ex-reader, self-inserts. Sometimes that's just how it is. I don't think all rhaenicents are like this, but like I said, not everyone in either camp is like this entirely. I do think it is very fair for anti-rhaenicents to argue that the rhaenicent ship has skewed perceptions of both of the characters. Once again, favorite phrase of the day, this is not new. That isn't really to say that I believe that the show or the books should take precedent over either interpretation of the characters, because they are both so different. I do, however, believe that shipping oftentimes leads to fans boiling these characters down to very superficial characteristics. In Rhaenicent's case, this is Rhaenyra being more masculine and Alicent being more feminine. However, this is not the only case of this. Many times that is just what happens in shipping, especially queer shipping, but is also seen in, straight ships. I do think it's important for all people who engage in shipping in fandom to take a step back and assess why they view these characters in a certain way. As for Rhaenyra's line in season 2 episode 6, it is my understanding that this line is supposed to comment on the misogyny in Westerosi society and the expectations that are placed on Rhaenyra as a woman. If she were a man, no one would have thought twice about her lovers, the legitimacy of her children, and her status as Viserys' heir. But I do think it's very important for us to consider the fact that misogyny and the patriarchy heavily dictate how women or people assigned female at birth, trans or otherwise, are allowed to express themselves and their gender identity. If Rhaenyra was non-binary or transmasc, or even just like not falling into the typical perception of a woman, she wouldn't be allowed to do that.
Hi. So please, if you can, ignore the fact that someone is very clearly mowing outside. I don't think I clearly conveyed what I wanted to in this little section. So I said something along the lines of, even if Rhaenyra was like non-binary, transmasc, or not wanting to be like feminine, she wouldn't be allowed to do that. And I feel like that there is a better way of saying that. By not being allowed to do that, I mean that Rhaenyra, even though she is the queen or the princess, she's still confined to these societal gender roles, and she's expected to present femininely and generally behave like a woman should.
This is exacerbated by her status as, depending on whose history you go by, a Targaryen princess or the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. As seen in Alicent's storyline, royal life confines women to these small boxes of men's expectations. Despite Rhaenyra's attempt to disrupt the status quo of royal life, she still finds herself unable to break free from her status. Finally, and most importantly, in my professional, personal opinion, Rhaenyra would not fucking wear that. To anti-Rhaenicents, oh my god, I've said Rhaenicent so many times.